Today I'll be explaining to you what the Metro Area Express light rail proposal for Perth was, and if it is still feasible to build today. We will look over the history of the proposal, its proposed route, and what its trams would have looked like. As always, if you do enjoy this video, please consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. Let's start with some context first. Perth is the capital of Western Australia, and the Perth metropolitan area has an estimated population of 2,143,000 people. The city's CBD, or Central Business District, is located on the north side of the Swan River, and is served by buses, trains and ferries. Many years ago, the city was also served by a comprehensive tramway network, which, at its peak in 1944, carried over 50 million passengers. The network opened in 1899 with a single line running along Hay Street, and expanded north as far as Osborne Park, east as far as Welshpool, south as far as Como, and west as far as Claremont. However, after World War II, the system was gradually replaced by buses and trolleybuses, until the 19th of July 1958, when E-Class Tram 66 ran the last revenue tram service in Western Australia, from Inglewood to Perth. Had the system remained, then the Metro Area Express proposal would have never existed. By the early 2000s, Perth was facing some major problems. Despite recent investment in the city's transport system, the main roads were becoming heavily congested, particularly in areas not served by any railways. Perth also has a major urban sprawl problem, with the city's total length being 125 kilometres long, which, combined with Perth's low population density, makes building railways more expensive. Fast forward to 2012, and the then Liberal government announced plans for a light rail network for Perth, known as Metro Area Express, or MAX for short. This would have helped to relieve some of the congestion that Perth's major roads were facing. The proposed MAX route would have been 22 kilometres in length, connecting Mirrabooka, Nedlands and the Causeway to the Perth CBD. The route would have connected commuters to several educational facilities and several shopping centres and leisure facilities as well. The Mirrabooka to CBD section was planned to have 14 tram stops, which would have been spaced between 500 metres and 1.5 kilometres apart from each other. Some notable tram stops include City Square, which would have provided a direct connection to Perth Station, the central station for Transperth's suburban rail network. Perth Arena, which as the name suggests would be located in a short walking distance from the Perth Arena. ECU Mount Lawley, which would serve the Edith Cowan University's Mount Lawley campus, and finally Mirrabooka, which would serve the Mirrabooka shopping centre and be located next to the Mirrabooka bus station. The line would have then continued north to terminate within the suburb of Balga. The Nedlands Section was planned to run as far as the Queen Elizabeth II Medical Precinct, but never had any of its intermediate stops confirmed. It is interesting to note that the Nedlands section would have run on a similar alignment as the previous electric tramway to Nedlands had. However, back then the tramway extended further south, running past the University of Western Australia. Some tram services even continued further west to the Claremont Railway Station and West Anna Road. In the photo currently shown, you can see 2nd A-Class Tram 116 running a Route 30 service to Claremont. The Causeway section was planned to run to the east side of the Causeway Bridge, where it would have terminated at the Victoria Park bus transfer station, but again no intermediate stops had been confirmed. It would have provided an important public transport connection to the Wacker, which hosts numerous games of cricket throughout the year. Just like the Nedlands Section, the Causeway Section also travels along a similar route to a previous tramway, which also crossed the Causeway Bridge. However, trams back then continued further on to Como and Welshpool. The total cost for the whole network was estimated to be $1.88 billion in 2013. It was predicted that by 2031, over 35,000 people a day would use the MAX system, with trams operating at a 5-minute frequency during peak hours. This equates to approximately 12,775,000 people using the whole system every year. To put this into perspective, the Joondalup line on the Transperth suburban rail network carried 14 million passengers in the 2022-23 financial year. Moving on, let's talk about the project's brief history. Back in September 2012, the state government announced plans to reintroduce trams back into Perth. At the same time, they released a website for the MAX project. However, in December 2013, the government announced that construction had been deferred by 3 years, with a new opening date estimated in 2022. Then, in 2014, the new Transport Minister announced that there were now plans to split the project into 2 stages, to allow for an earlier construction date. Priority was given to the Mirrabooka to CBD section, which would form Stage 1, while the Nedlands to Causeway section would become Stage 2. However, a year later, in 2015, it was announced that buses were planned to be used to implement the MAX route, as they could be implemented at half the price. However, this gives up many of the advantages that light rail has over buses. Finally, on June 21st, 2016, the Transport Minister announced MAX had been cancelled, in favour of building a new underground East Wanneroo Railway to Morley, which was proposed to be built at some point in the future. However, as of 2024, construction of this railway is yet to commence. So what were the tram stops going to look like? The tram stops themselves were planned to be equipped with a shelter, seating, CCTV, smart rider readers, and electronic information displays. They would have also been fully accessible with a raised platform, so that those with wheelchairs or prams could access the trams with step-free access. Some stops were also planned to have car parks and bike shelters, as well as bus interchanges. But what would have the trams looked like? While no contracts were ever signed for the trams, concept designs do exist. The trams were planned to be able to carry up to 300 people, which is the equivalent of 3 bendy buses. They were to be fully air-conditioned and were going to be around 43 metres in length. The concept showed the trams to have 5 articulated sections, and were similar in design to Melbourne's C2 class tram. The proposal even got as far as planning for future extensions to the network. These extensions included extending the Nedlands section from Queen Elizabeth the second medical precinct to UWA, extending the Causeway Section to Curtin University in Bentley, and also a branch off the Causeway Section to Optus Stadium. There was even a new route planned to branch off the Nedlands Section, which would run to Glendalough Railway Station and Stirling Railway Station via Subiaco. So that's the proposal. But is it still feasible to build today? The answer is absolutely. This is especially the case for the Nedlands to Perth section, as this area's roads can become very congested in peak hour traffic. There are even plenty of arguments for other light rail routes right across the metropolitan area, like in Stirling or connecting Fremantle Station to the Mandurah line, but that's a future video. And that brings us to the end of today's video. If you did enjoy this video, please consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already, and check out our playlist of other light rail proposals for WA if you haven't.